The world has gone through unprecedented times in the past year. And we are being told that the pandemic is getting worse and worse globally. Cases are rising, people are dying, and lockdowns are getting tighter and tighter globally. How did we get here? Where are we going? Is there a sinister agenda behind it all? This video is a brief introduction of highlights explaining the current events with facts. So, let's begin. In 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation released a 54-page document called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. For those of you who don't know the Rockefeller family, they have been in the forefront of eugenics, the science of population control, since 1902. In 1952, David Rockefeller's eldest brother, John, established the Population Council. In subsequent decades, the eugenics program developed, tested, and implemented various biowarfare tools as means of controlling population growth. Since then, efforts are creating the necessary infrastructure, research bodies, lab testing, and experimentations have proceeded till the present day.
Senator Rockefeller?
Yes.
I'd like to know if you're aware that we, the American people, are aware of the agenda of the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderberg Group. And if you could comment on that, please, because very concerning to a lot of us.
You know, I have 37 people lined up right outside Senator Schumer's office. All of them wanting to answer precisely that question.
Well, could you just take a brief moment and let us...
No, because we're not talking. We're talking about something.
Well, something that's so important, it sort of transcends everything else that we're talking about, sir. Could you comment on that, please?
No.
I'd like to know about the Bilderberg Group.
Get yourself some credentials.
Well, we have it, sir.
I'd like to know about the Bilderberg Group, sir.
Well, that's not part of our discussion.
When can we discuss that with you, sir?
Thank
you. Thank you.
Okay, this is for the senator. This is the scientific proof of the nanofed markets of the World Trade Center does by scientists from around the world. Basically, conclusive proof that there's an Article 3, Section 3 treasonous cover-up going on about 9/11, sir. So
We'd love to get your opinion on that, too,
wait,
sir.
what did you say?
Thank you.
Two families, the Rockefellers and the Osborns, are particularly significant. John D. Rockefeller Sr. contributed a large amount of money to build the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in the early 1900s, which housed the Eugenics Records Office from 1910 to 1944. Rockefeller influence also spread overseas to Germany, where the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Psychiatry and the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Eugenics, Anthropology, and Human Heredity resided. Much of the money used to run these facilities came directly from Rockefeller. These institutes became centers for Nazi eugenics programs during the reign of Adolf Hitler.
Your family starting the modern eugenics movement?
Let's call him Miss Christian.
Started eugenics. Hitler looked up to the eugenics that your family has started.
I think it's time for me to really start moving quickly.
You could just address some of these things. If we're wrong, sir, please just tell us.
No, go find somebody else to talk to.
But your family did start the modern eugenics movement that Hitler is looking up to. And you don't want to talk about the Bilderberg Group? But what about the Bilderberg?
Certainly do.
You don't want to talk about them? They want to implement eugenics as well.
I don't.
The truth is coming out, and there's a lot of us that are aware of it.
I'm sure you know some members, sir, if you're not a member yourself.
Going back to the 2010 Rockefeller document, there's an intriguing scenario called Lockstep, a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. China's government was not the only one that took extreme measures to protect its citizens from risk and exposure. During the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. Even after the pandemic faded, this more authoritarian control oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified. Moving on to 2011, there was a movie called Contagion. It was about the death of Beth Amoff and her son, which leads to the discovery of a deadly virus. CDC tries to control its spread as a worldwide panic erupts.
This is a groundbreaking ceremony for a new factory.
Did she mention seeing anyone who was sick? Anyone on a plane, the airport?
No, she said she was jet lagged.
The average person touches their face 3 to 5 times every waking minute. In between, we're touching doorknobs, water fountains, and each other.
Beth. Mom? No, go up to your room, honey.
So we have a virus with no treatment protocol and no vaccine at this time.
You had a seizure this morning, Beth.
She had a history of seizures,
No.
allergies.
As of last night, there are 32 cases.
Unfortunately, she did die.
Right. So can I go talk to her?
Mr. Amoff, your wife is dead.
In 2012, we had the London Olympics, which was conducted by the National Health Service. The National Health Service was founded in 1948, the year of the last London Olympics prior to 2012, and it has become the 5th largest employer of labor in the world with 1.7 million staff. Showing off the coronavirus symbol when you look at it from bird's eye view. We also have Boris Johnson's costume on the NHS bed at the London 2012 Olympic ceremony. Does that sound familiar to you? Yes, lo and behold, Boris Johnson was in the ICU, alleged to have contracted the Wuhan virus. Look at it in plain sight. They're not even hiding it from the public.
Late last week, Boris Johnson emerged briefly from his residence to applaud health workers, but in a Twitter video admitted he wasn't well enough yet to end his isolation.
Alas, I still have one of the symptoms, a minor symptom. I still have temperature.
That was clearly an understatement. 48 hours later, Johnson was in the hospital. Early in the outbreak, he fronted the UK campaign to promote hand washing, but also boasted about shaking hands with coronavirus patients, which suggests multiple exposures.
In 2013, we had a rap called Pandemic by a rapper named Dr. Creep. And here is what he had to say.
This isn't past tense on the plague of bad things. Couldn't be eradicated like smallpox in action. Avian influenza where the jet stream is how it happens. 2020 combined with coronavirus.
In 2014, the US government funded the Wuhan lab for coronavirus study.
Health here in the US to the Wuhan lab in China, the same lab where many people have said that this coronavirus infection first originated. We also now know that NIAID, the department associated with the National Institutes of Health, of which Dr. Anthony Fauci is in control, had already been conducting experiments with the Wuhan lab in the past in regard to coronavirus. If Dr. Anthony Fauci cannot be honest with the public about his connection to this lab, then Fauci has to go.
In 2015, Bill Gates spoke about a virus outbreak.
Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. Not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence. But we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic.
In 2016, Trump won the US presidential election, which was a setback for the globalists because Trump is against globalism.
It was a scene few could imagine just a few hours earlier. Donald Trump trailing in the polls for much of the campaign, emerging victorious in a presidential result that stunned the nation and the world.
The future does not belong to globalists. The future belongs to patriots. The future belongs to sovereign and independent nations who protect their citizens, respect their neighbors, and honor the differences that make each country special and unique.
In 2017, Dr. Fauci predicted a surprise outbreak.
The idea that we are now a few days away from a new administration, given, as you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity of serving in 5 administrations, I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today, is that there is no question that there will be a surprise outbreak.
Leaders of global health and business have been simulating a tabletop exercise with fictional scenarios for several decades. 1 year before Event 201, many of the same sponsors, hosts, and actors came together to produce a tabletop pandemic exercise for a fictional virus called Clade X.
1 year to produce a vaccine for this is too long.
We should have stockpiled, we didn't, but we're going to have to look at that vaccine question to see if we can speed up the delivery.
And if we do not have the public with us, we're in big trouble.
October 18, 2019, Johns Hopkins University hosted a tabletop exercise for a coronavirus 5 months prior to the pandemic.
On behalf of our center and our partners, the World Economic Forum and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our audience here in New York, as well as our larger virtual audience participating online today. The Event 201 scenario is fictional. Today's scenario is going to simulate meetings of a multi-stakeholder group called the Pandemic Emergency Board.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
There's been some conspiracy theories that are around about the potential that pharmaceutical companies or the UN have released this for their own benefit.
And maybe this is a time for us to showcase some cases where we are able to bring forward some bad actors and leave it before the courts to decide whether they have actually spread some fake news.
A new coronavirus. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia.
In related news, a significant demand for personal protective equipment like N95 masks and gloves are on the rise. Patients are overwhelming healthcare facilities. People are avoiding public spaces out of fear of infection and in compliance with public health recommendations. Our U.S. affiliate has just released polling results on public expectations for a vaccine, and 65% of those polled are eager to take the vaccine, even if it's experimental.
I am not optimistic about having the vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
With enough money and political will, anything is possible.
Penalties have been put in place for spreading harmful falsehoods, including arrests.
If the solution means controlling and reducing access to information, I think it's the right choice.
What exactly are the risks and benefits of staying home from work? Absolutely, we need to save lives, but we literally cannot afford a heavy-handed response that suffocates our economy.
The world saw large-scale protests and in some places riots. This led to violent crackdowns in some countries and even martial law. The public lost trust in their respective administration. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad?
And then we had the mystery illness in Wuhan, China. At least 44 people have become infected with an unknown virus in Wuhan. All of them are in quarantine. 11 are currently in serious condition. Health authorities said the origin of the nature of the viral pneumonia outbreak remain unknown. In the first announcement of the outbreak, authorities said most patients worked in this seafood market. The market was ordered closed on New Year's Day. Crews have been cleaning the area. Aside from seafood, animals such as birds and rabbits were also sold there. This prompted comparison with the 2002 SARS virus, which is thought to have jumped from animals to humans. Unlike 2002, Chinese authorities have been quick to share information. So they say. In the upcoming months and years, we will be forced to make choices that either way will influence and impact the future of the lives of our families, friends, finances, communities, and much, much more. Will we sit back and acquiesce to every draconian measure the government throws at us, despite the clear contradictions and the irrational demands made on its citizens? Will we accept the mainstream media narrative driven by fear and deception that is dividing families, friends, churches, as well as destroying businesses, communities, structures, and children's education? Will we allow a sinister agenda that is deeply satanic and occultic in its roots to prevent us from living out a fulfilled God-given life? I believe it's time to get serious. How about you?